Victor's perspective. The synthetic material of my uniform is waterproof and insulating, so most of me is still warm and dry, but my hands and face are freezing as I desperately fight to swim back upwards. I break the surface of the water and take a gasping inhale. I'm being carried along at a rate of knots by the current. I look around and identify a ledge I'm able to swim to. Having made it, I pull myself out of the water and roll onto my back, heaving for breath. "Victor! Victor!" shouts Samus, carrying both her gun and mine, on top of the cliff on the opposite bank, running downstream to catch up to the place the current carried me. Still out of breath, I raise my hand and give a reassuring wave of "not dead." When I've mostly recovered, I sit up and shout back, "I'm alright, Samus. Nothing's broken. Did you see where my holo went?" "I did. Into the river, I'm afraid. I don't think you're getting it back." "Alright, call Twiller and the others. Let them know we're separated," I say. "You don't want to try getting back up here? Or what if I come down? We could give Twiller our location and she could pick us up." "Nowhere for her to land. River's too fast and you're wearing too much armor. You'd sink and drown if you went in, and I don't particularly feel like testing my luck again. Let's just meet back at the rendezvous on the plateau." "Alright. You want me to try and toss you your gun? I'm not certain I can make it," she says, judging the distance that she definitely can't make. I shake my head. "Keep it. Take it back. With you, please. I've got my falchion. I'll see you where we agreed." "Alright," she says, frowning. "But Victor." "Yeah, Samus? If you die before you've apologized to Toon, I'm gonna fucking kill you." I laugh. "Deal." Brunhilde's perspective. Twiller did a flyby. I looked for suitable crossing paths on the river. She basically found that there were none. The river pours out of the side of the table mound that we're headed back to, pretty much fully formed, and in the other direction, doesn't become safely swimmable until it reaches a floodplain. Days walk from here. Swimmable in the sense that the current itself is unlikely to kill him, but to say nothing of what horrific riverine predators might be lurking in the waterways on this planet. Best course of action she recommended was for me to beeline it back to the rendezvous and for Cuddles to take the long way around, along the river. He's not going to make it back before dark. I've got his gun slung across my back and mine across my front. I don't envy Vector. Only having a plasma falchion for protection on a planet of dinosaurian fauna is rough. He tells me he had that sword designed specifically for him, based on the on-screen incarnation of Orcrist from the thoroughly mediocre 21st century Hobbit films. The only adjustments he had made were giving it a full guard, rather than the half it had in the films, and scaling it up for his above-average stature. The result is an absolutely beautiful weapon. I'd probably not have chosen the Grey Sword for my bladed fighting style specialization module in retrospect. It's really only any good for wide open spaces, not too much use in a forest surrounded by underbrush or anywhere else cramped. Not really a problem though. I can count on one hand the number of times I've had to have a blade fight in anger. Most of the time firepower's the way to go. Swords are really only for if your gun gets lost or broken, or if you're fighting someone in full plate. Heat is Duasteel's only notable weakness. That, and I suppose the fact that all of the bones and organs of his wearer still have inertia, making them no less vulnerable to a long drop and a sudden stop. For a while, I think about all of the people during the war who were horrifically burned alive inside their armor, after the GU realized that plasma blades, which had been mostly thought of as tools up to then, were very effective anti-death order weapons. After that, I start wondering what evolutionary forces must have been at play to create a world of rainbow-coloured forests populated by dinosaurs. Then, blocking my path, I see something I could really do without seeing right now. 30 meters out and 1 meter tall, with a body covered in dull pink integument, 2 clawed feet, a horizontally held torso balanced by a long rigid tail, and 4 clawed hands, at the end of as many arms, which, though lined with long straight feathers, I can't call wings, stands a raptorial predator. I'd estimate his mass at around 50 kilogram. There is no mistaking that thing as a leaf eater, nor what it's doing as anything other than hunting me. "Your stealth leaves a little to be desired, buddy. I can see you a mile out. Why don't you try your luck on something a little less dangerous?" I shout, unimpressed. The animal doesn't take the hint, still stalking towards me, seeming to think itself invisible. "I'm really not in the mood," I snarl, raising my gun to aim at the side of the tree trunk, slightly ahead of it. You only need one round for a warning shot, but I indulge myself with a short controlled burst of 5, which strike the tree within less than a second of each other, obliterating a palm-sized patch and creating an explosion of splinters. The forest echoes with the thundering boom of my gun, and my little unwanted admirer immediately wheels and bolts away in the opposite direction. It, however, is not the only one who receives a shock in that moment. All around me I hear the sound of medium-sized predators scrambling to get away from me. I catch a few glimpses of dull pink fur through the underbrush. The closest wasn't even 10 meters away. Fucking hell. If it weren't for the distractor alerting me to their presence, the rest would have got me with that ambush, no question. I'm just lucky that the hunting technique of sending a decoy to occupy my attention didn't work, on account of their fear of gun noises. I need to pay more attention. I hope Cuddles is having more luck than this. Victor's perspective. That's a T-Rex. 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 That is a Tyrannosaurus Rex. A tyrant lizard king. Sure, it has too many arms that were supporting his weight with them, while it drank, in a way I don't think a Terran T-Rex would have been able to. Sure, I don't think T-Rex down would have been quite that intense purple colour, but in every way that matters, I just rounded a rock and found a motherfucking T-Rex drinking from the river I'm walking along. It didn't seem to notice me until I faltered and stopped, but then it stopped drinking and looked right at me before standing up and turning to face me. We're staring each other down now, and I'm furiously calculating what to do next. I read a lot of research that states T-Rexes would have probably not been too difficult for a human to outrun, but I'm not sure I want to stake my life on my ability to outrun this thing. The research could be wrong, or even if it's right, and even though this thing looks almost identical to a T-Rex, it might be completely different under the hood. There are no hiding spots within dashing distance. I could try jumping in the river, but I think it would probably get me before I was carried away. That leaves killing it, or scaring it off. I ought to attempt the latter and only resort to the former if that fails. Neither are going to be particularly easy. The T-Rex takes a single step forward. "That's far enough! Get out of here!" I bark, lurching forward aggressively, slamming my right foot into the loose shale of the riverbank, baring my teeth and speaking with a tone like I'm telling off a misbehaving child. It freezes and begins visibly reassessing. I guess it's not used to things my size acting this way. It expected me to run, and the fact that I didn't means it's now trying to work out if I know something it doesn't. It seems to decide that I'm bluffing, and continues its advance. Fortunately, my next avenue for attempting to scare it off will place me well for the backup plan of putting it down. I reach to my left hip and draw my falchion. I raise it above my head and click the ignition. In the space of less than 2 seconds, the blade glows through red, orange and yellow, before settling on white. Lit plasma blades don't hum. They don't buzz. They don't drone. They roar. The sound of matter that wants to use its energy to escape, but is forced to stay put. The sound of atmosphere being constantly violently convected upwards as it encounters the blade. The sound of the universe scraunching under the strain of realizing this thing that oughtn't be real is so loud that you need to shout to make yourself heard over it. To hold an ignited plasma blade in your hand is to defy the cruel mistress, physics herself. Is to spit in the face of the natural order of things. Clearly the animal can recognize the unnaturalness of the device I've just drawn, as it stops, dead in its tracks. For the first time I hear it vocalize. It gives great trumpeting hoots, not the guttural growls that I expected. I hold the blade in front of me and begin slowly walking forward, advancing on the T-Rex. It backs up, then turns to run into the forest. As I watch it go, I say, "Damn, should have just run. That thing ain't going more than jogging speed. Ah well, I know now." I extinguish my sword and watch as it's brought back down to ambient temperature, the excess heat being drawn back into the fusion core. I sheathe it back at my hip and continue walking. It's convenient that I know the river leads to right where I want to go, less convenient that it's an accessible water source, and so walking along it, I'm much more likely to have run-ins with animals. Another few kilometers and I'm proven right. I come to the top of a slope and am able to look down on a beach, with a dozen or so six-legged teal hadrosauroids drinking from the river. Definitely herbivores, though that doesn't mean that they're not dangerous, what with each one looking like it weighs around 3 tons. I allow myself a moment to appreciate the scene, as I look down on the creatures who are, for the moment, tranquil. I remember Maya, the woman who raised me, making a joke about one of the hadrosaurid species being her dinosaur because of its name, and let out a chuckling smile. I hate to burst the tranquil little bubble, but they are in my way. I raise my hands and begin waving them above my head, making loud, high, trilling shrieks as I do. The creatures all look up, and it takes only a second for the first one to decide that they're not chancing staying here, with that strange thing up on the hill, and run for the safety of the forest. All but one of them follow. The one that doesn't is on the far end of the beach. I scale the rocky slope and it just continues drinking. I walk towards it, expecting to have to pull the plasma blade trick again. Just as I'm getting close, it turns, and there's a moment where I think it's about to run off after it's heard. Then it keels over with a long, lowering wail, and I see 2 meters of wooden shaft sticking out of a wound in its chest.